And we're back. So what strategies will enterprises of the future use to ensure communications between business ecosystems? We rounded up a group of experts to explore this topic in detail for our next discussion. So please welcome Adrian Anderegg, partner at AWK. Welcome, Adrian.
Hello.
Jerome Dilouya. Hi, Jerome, co-founder and CEO of InterCloud, joining us from Paris. Martin Leuthold. Hi, Jerome. Martin Leuthold, head of network and security, as well as management board member at Switch.
Hi.
Markus Nispel. Hi, Markus. VP of International Markets at Extreme Networks, joining us from Frankfurt.
Hello, everybody.
And Mr. Egon Steinkasserer, CTO of Swisscom, is also here.
Good afternoon.
And Robert Wigger, Chief Business Officer of Sunrise-UPC.
Good afternoon.
And to lead this conversation, Mr. Christopher Koch, Senior Strategy Manager at SCiON. Take it away.
Thank you, Leah. And a very warm welcome also from my side. My name is Christopher Koch, and I gained some insight into the Cyan technology by acting as the project leader for the project SSFN at SCiON, and also coordinating all activities to actually introduce SSFN. Our panel discussion today is focusing on the topic enabling ecosystems to safely communicate. Now, one example of such an ecosystem wanting to safely communicate is the Swiss financial sector, which was presented this morning with the Secure Swiss Finance Network. And as we heard, the SSFN is obviously based on the Cyan technology, one of the reasons therefore being that it provides and enables a trusted, distributed and enforceable governance. But why should other organizations and other ecosystems also set their eyes on the Cyan technology? Why should we aim to replace traditional internet BGP connections with the Cyan protocol? And why should Cyan-based networks provide superior properties than, for example, MPLS networks? So in this panel discussion, we all here are going to discuss this and take a deeper look into what the interested parties of such an ecosystem require. Specifically, I would like to look into three topics. Number one, what's in it for the client? Number two, what are the biggest hurdles that need to be overcome? And number three, how do companies, service providers need to work together so that the clients actually have the security to change over to a Cyan-enabled network? Now, let's kick off with the first question, which I would like all of you to answer. Why should companies join a Cyan-based network? And please, when you're answering this question, also state who you are and why you think your company provides really good services in this case. Adrian, may I pass the question to you?
Yeah, thank you. I'm a partner at AWK. They're consulting various banks and also service providers in their journey in digitalization. And yeah, one of the biggest challenges they face at the moment, my clients face, is this compromise between security and openness in the network. So if you would talk to any security officer in a bank, they would probably love to build up a huge wall, a perimeter around the company, having everyone in the office and not allowing any traffic outside of the bank itself. But yeah, unfortunately, we all know that that's not the case. Well, we have COVID, we have home offices, that's one thing, but we also have market trends like the cloud. Cloud is here in financial services. It took a while, but definitely, I think all of the banks at the moment, they use cloud services, which requires openness towards the internet. And also the big trend to collaborate in ecosystem, being bank assurance or be it, together with fintechs, establishing new services. So there you need fast and reliable connection. So I think this contradictory trends being secure but being open is the major advantage which science gives. And yeah, even thinking a bit further, we could also think of relevance for the Swiss economic with many small and medium-sized enterprises. They require collaboration often with partners in early stages as well to research on new topics. So they require flexible interaction with many partners. So you could even think of Cyan being an important part of Switzerland as an innovative hub in the world when allowing fast and secure collaboration.
Oh, very interesting. Thank you. Martin, Switch has a very long experience with Cyan. So where do you see the benefits and what does Switch do to enhance and enforce these benefits?
Well, I'm the head of data security and network at Switch. So security and network are core competencies of our organization. At Switch, we are basically the ICT service provider of the Swiss education, research and innovation community. And we are a foundation founded by the federal government and university cantons. We have a very long history, that's correct, with Cyan, because we are as well supporting research work of the Swiss universities, if we can do so. And we have a very long cooperation with Professor Perig on Cyan. We have been, together with Swisscom, one of the first test beds, real-world test beds of Cyan. And in the last years, we had the opportunity to implement or to be a part of the implementation of two operational projects. The first has been the Cyan at ETH domain project, where we basically interconnected all ETH organization with a Cyan network. Based on that, we developed a Cyan service for the universities that is available currently. And the other one, we know each other from that project, is the SSFN. I think I don't have to say more about that. And what we're doing as well is we're trying to push the technology and the protocol as well in the international ERI community through SCiON, which is the association of the NRENs in Europe. And we see progress there as well because there is interest by other NRENs, like, for example, in Germany or in the Netherlands. So that's what we're doing. But what are basically the drivers? Big drivers are security. So we have research areas like, for example, biomed, IT, where a lot of organizations are participating. They have elevated security requirements, and it makes a lot of sense to use their more secure layers in the internet than the very old protocols that we are using until now and that we are probably using for quite some time into the future as well. And then we have some special applications. So we see enormously growing data volumes. And to transfer these data volumes, we are using special concepts like Science DMZ. And together with Adrian Anderegg and his researchers, we are developing, basically based on Cyan, solutions to make that more secure. That are use cases that we see and drivers that we see.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you. Looking into the camera, and Jerome from InterCloud, what is your view and what does InterCloud provide here?
Thank you. Hi everyone. So I'm Jerome Dilouya, I'm the CEO of InterCloud, you heard my co-founder this evening about what InterCloud is doing, but just in a nutshell, to provide private connectivity to the large cloud service provider. And as we are, let's say, I won't say a new joiner, but maybe the last joiner in the whole Cyan family, I can tell you that during the last 10 years, we spent all our time and efforts to connect organizations like yours, like all the Cyan participants to something that is odd, that is cloud service providers, meaning that it's securing something that is open, that we just said at the beginning of the discussion. And that's what we've done, but on the other side, put on the other side, because you understand now that we're French, but on the other side, meaning that it's not technically on the one, it's not a problem of MPLS, a problem of IPsec, it's just a problem of connecting your application, your core application to Azure or AWS or strange beasts like this. And for us, and that's why we're here and we're really happy to be here, is that, of course, Cyan will prevail. At some point, every single network in the world will be Cyan. But in the meantime, let's say for the next 6 to 12 months before that, you need to stitch your Cyan network, whatever size it is, with the rest of the world that is not ready yet to do this. And I think that's something that we can probably do, meaning that even if you change all your MPLS and your whatever network you have into a 100% Cyan thing, at some point you will need to access privately your Azure data lake that is somewhere in Virginia or in Singapore. To do so, either Microsoft will jump to the Cyan thing on Monday, maybe you will need a private connection directly to their premises. That's what we bring to this Cyan project, and we're really happy to do so.
Thank you, Jerome. Egon, where do you see the value of Cyan, and what does Swisscom have to offer there?
So first of all, I would like to thank everybody that I can be here today. It's the 10th years I was asking Adrian before that we collaborate, and we have invested roughly 10 millions in the chair of Adrian and his team. And so we are really super happy that there is now substantial outcomes that also have an international impact. And we want to contribute to make this happen. And everything that brings us closer to make the internet safer, and for sure replacing BGP with Cyan is a mission we all should help pursue, is something that is close to our heart. And now, as it's difficult to change those things overnight, it's fantastic that we found ways to leverage the fantastic capabilities for communities like now in banking and elsewhere. So for us, the mission is really to drive security, and this is like a big puzzle piece, and there is many elements that contribute, and we saw over the past months, more than ever before, what is happening, how many attacks are happening, and for sure, secure routing, eliminating man-in-the-middle issues, and providing other capabilities is a foundation for a next step, and that's why we are, how to say, happy to contribute to push this vision forward.
Thank you, Egon. Turning again to the screen and to Markus at Extreme. So which use cases do you see are predestined for Cyan-based networks, and how can Extreme be of value to your customers?
Yeah, so for Extreme, so I run the incubator at the office of the CTO for Extreme. So we are a global network infrastructure provider that basically has multiple segments of our portfolio that are interesting to be combined with Cyan. As Martin, the CEO of InterCloud, mentioned before, we are an existing partner already that has Cyan technology in production on our cloud enterprise portfolio, but we have two additional segments: service provider, where I heard this morning that there's already a P4 prototype being built by one of the partners, which really is really interesting for us and it aligns with our data plane strategy for service providers. So that's certainly an opportunity for us. But also on the WAN edge side, which is our third portfolio component, we do envision that Cyan technology becomes a key enabler as we see that more and more enterprises are distributed. The edge, the WAN edge, the home office becomes more and more important. So we see a huge opportunity there, as we also expect that the change in terms of employees working from home, even post-pandemic, will not change anymore. And I think that has been discussed today already. So we do see for ourselves, for our portfolio, and us providing solutions to our customers, huge opportunities in all of those segments moving forward. And for us, I guess the main driver for adoption, we would also like to see other verticals picking up the technology. So we see an ultimate need not only in financial, but also in healthcare, government, public safety, retail, critical infrastructure, healthcare, utilities. And those are all of the verticals that we, together with our partners, are active and where we can bring a lot of value to the marketplace.
Thank you. And Robbie, which arguments do you use when talking to customers and convincing them to buy a Cyan-enabled connection from Sunrise-UPC?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So happy to be here. As I said, I'm Robert from Sunrise-UPC. I've been involved over the last couple of years in the launch of the Cyan service. Early discussions with SIX and many other of our financial customers. We finally now launched the Cyan service by end of last year, so it's up and running, which is pretty cool. Very excited actually to be part of that society, of that ecosystem, and supporting the industry here. I believe, we can do something really good for those ecosystems like the SSFN banking ecosystem, in order to help them to have a more secure, but also more flexible, more agile environment in how to communicate. And I see that really that this is a big strength we can bring to the economy in Switzerland, quite frankly, or to this industry, or even to the society here in Switzerland. So contributing to that ecosystem, I think makes a lot of sense, and it's also quite some fun, actually. Sunrise-UPC have been established in the B2B market quite a bit over the last couple of years. We have been able to win a lot of the financial companies for our carrier networking services, and we have been discussing Cyan services with them, and also understanding, what can we support, how can we support, what can we bring additionally to it. And obviously it needs to have not only one partner from a telco perspective, but many. And so happy to be here also in this round with my colleagues to support that environment. And as we have our connectivity built out to those companies already, it was also a strong request from their side. I believe the other interesting thing is, and I've heard that already before, is that we now can connect home users, or we plan to connect the home users as well, when working from home. That's another interesting opportunity to connect subsidiaries abroad as well. It's also something we have been driving with the Swiss government already in a pilot concept. And also to identify new ecosystems in how we could establish Cyan as a protocol to make it more secure.
Thank you, Bobby. Now, having sort of looked at the big picture, let's sort of take a dive a bit in and look a bit deeper into the topic. Where do you see the biggest hurdles, and how would you argue vis-a-vis a client, or more bigger, broadly speaking, against an ecosystem? What sort of really are the biggest hurdles? Egon, maybe you first?
Well, the internet wasn't built overnight. Mm-hmm. So that's a process, and we need to create lighthouse projects. And I think Switzerland is the ideal playground to create those, so that it's not just about talking or convincing people based on papers and fantastic academic work, but also real-life scenarios, real-life customers that solve real-life security issues. I think that's the main thing we have to push, so that we can avoid DDoS and many other elements that nowadays are tough cookies to address. And also we need to convince people that it's not just about how to say, nice bells and whistles at the edge of the network, but it's really the core of the network that needs these types of innovations to push security to another level.
Okay, thank you. Robbie, what can you add as a sort of competitor?
Well, I think to make it really successful, we need to broaden the knowledge about Cyan and what it can do for the economy, for the ecosystems, for the society, so that it becomes really a standard at a certain point, right? So driving that knowledge is very important, and it's not only the technology itself, right? It's really about the benefit what it can generate. The security element, of course, is the key, and now looking at the hurdles is, of course, that Switzerland is not an island, so that we are part of a larger ecosystem around the globe, and obviously, we need also to create the awareness, that this Cyan protocol and this whole initiative is something which is known globally at the end of the day, right? I mean, that is one of the goals, long-time goals we are having.
Thank you. You've just given me sort of like the starting point to head to you, Jerome, for a bit maybe a more international perspective. So which hurdles do you see and how would you overcome them? Especially when we talked previously, you mentioned time is of essence. How much time do you actually give the existing, the legacy technologies?
I can be optimistic, like Egon, and I like to dream that it's going to move fast. But hey, we're all grown-ups, and we've been there for the last 20 years. And you know that PGP and MPLS won't just leave us alone. So our view is that we will have to manage at the same time the new world, and Cyan is part of it, and the legacy, either in terms of networking or in terms of infrastructure at all. Meaning that every single thing that we can do as an ecosystem, and that we are part of it, to enable the legacy or to patch, or as I said, to stitch the old world with the new, will help using Cyan in real life. As you said, in a lab, it's working. At large scale, I won't say proof of concept, but large scale use cases, it's working. But my dream is that it's working for 1% of the usage of one large customer at the same time. And in 100%, you will always have, crappy SaaS platform that you need to use to credit check your customers, I don't know. Meaning that we need to find a way to enable those services with Cyan, let's say, until the last mile. So my friends here are taking care of what we call the first mile. So you're bringing the customer, the remote users, the remote sites, and the private network on the same world. And then we need to bring all this to the middle mile and the last mile in Singapore and Washington to the services that need to be accessed. So happily for me, we're complementary to everyone around the table. So I don't see competitors here. Not just in France, and that's fine.
Thank you. Markus, from Extreme, where do you see the hurdles and how do you see market demand shifting?
When I think about hurdles, I would describe the hurdle for Cyan as the scale. Scale is the biggest hurdle, and scale comes in a couple of dimensions. So we have that great nucleus of a financial network that is in production right now, but how do you scale Cyan beyond that in terms of use cases to create more demand in the marketplace? So more service providers are going to pick it up. So you create reach, you're scaling the reach, as Jerome mentioned, you need to go first mile to last mile. So how do you increase the reach so it becomes compelling for new customers and service providers to jump onto that bandwagon? So I think that's critically important, and that means that you also need to scale the use cases. We need to scale the use cases and come up with more examples, more verticals, more use cases that make it compelling for other ecosystem partners to provide those services, and so for other customers to jump onto this. And also, I think it has been mentioned as well, we need to scale the expertise of the technology. BGP and MPLS are well known in the marketplace. We will also see reluctance from like individuals to go down that route, because it's new. Everything I learned over the last 20 years, I almost need to throw it away. It's not exactly like that. But scaling expertise and knowledge is going to be important. So I would say the biggest hurdle is scale in those dimensions. And it's on all of us to work on those. So it's not a unidimensional problem, certainly.
Thank you, Markus. Martin, can you give us some insights into the hurdles that you see, and especially also maybe taking into consideration the experience you've had with international adoptions and international networks from the research area?
Yes, sure. One of the bigger hurdles, I think quite some have been mentioned here in the panel, but as well in the speeches before, that there's for sure this chicken-egg topic that we have. As we're talking about an internet working protocol, a lot of the added value lies in internet working. That means we have to attract as many ISP as possible to adopt the technology and to invest into that. And my belief is that we need lighthouse projects like the SSFN to do so, and that we need more of that, coming most probably from critical infrastructures and organizations or projects, as you see it in our environment with elevated security requirements driving that adoption. And I would like to go back to what Patrick Neff mentioned. We need standardization. We need this worldwide adoption. It's one of the reasons why we're as well pushing to SCiON. We've seen that as long as we are just in the switch network, which is an own autonomous system, that it's quite difficult that there are use cases, but it's quite difficult to find them. It gets much more interested if you're looking into the international dimension of education, research, and innovation.
Thank you. Adrian, maybe from your perspective, more consulting, what hurdles do you hear from your customers, and what would be your answer?
I would probably emphasize a bit another aspect because, well, of course, we need the network to be growing. Many partners, ISP globally converged into that. But at the end, some IT responsible or some network responsible needs to write a business case and present it to whatever board within his company and get some money for implementation. And therefore, we need to find a way to transfer terms like, we all know about MPLS and BGP and the next generation internet into a business speech. I think what Robbie said will help there, that we create an awareness of the topic itself so that the decider in a company who released the budget will have the trust in this network to really spend money on it, and at the end that's required to implement it in every company. So there, I think we need to provide clarity and also focus on real use cases which create business value. We have SSFN as a nice first example and proven use case there. That's really nice. But it's also important to create others, to prove others, and find a way to quantify the business value behind. I know that's always difficult, especially with security and reliability and network in general, but at the end, I see that as a hurdle which is important to convince business sponsors to release money and having more companies implementing Cyan then.
Thank you. We've heard now many times security. Now, one aspect that we've learned in the SSFN is the absolute need for collaboration between the service providers. William Boyle coined the name, I'm going to read this, the common pool resources. And this is especially, of course, relevant for companies that are coming from MPLS networks, where they've got guaranteed end-to-end connectivity, which Cyan in that sense does not guarantee, because you buy a single access. So this is also the reason why we're driving towards a best practice document, I'm going to call it now, which sort of defines the operational collaboration between service providers. Adrian, sort of goes also in what you said beforehand. How can such a formalized document help the adoption of a CYAN-based network and get customers, get ecosystems to adopt it?
I think we're definitely at a critical point in adoption. We have many large players on the ecosystem of CYAN, but yeah, need to be careful as well, because a larger outage, for instance, some incident could really lose trust and especially and get some bad publicity. And as I said, the business deciders, the sponsors probably are not that deep into technology, but are more looking into this trust feeling. And here, I think it's crucial, as we have an ecosystem also consisting of many competitors, right? Seeing on the stage as well. Don't stress the SLAs too much, right? But create some margin in it, so that we don't end up in any critical situation, and that the business users especially, they have to trust in the solution itself. And of course that's a challenge in corporate environment. Of course it's a co-opetition, some new created word, and we have an ecosystem. Probably no one will guarantee an SLA on something that's not under his full control, fully understood. But still, we need some level of cooperation. A document the governments could help, and needs to be implemented obviously as well. And yeah, we see that it's possible. When looking at international MPLS, many ISPs need to cooperate to have a MPLS routing over many countries. So you need to cooperate. We have a wholesale, obviously, also established, where many competitors do cooperate. But it's definitely something that's required to have this trust at business sponsors. Right?
Okay, thank you. Egon, going to you. I mean, you have a more technical background. From a technical point, you will probably say CYAN is so secure, we don't need anything. But I think you also agree that some kind of formalization would help, at least at the beginning.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's what the telco industry, what carriers, what MNO are already good at. I would like to emphasize that CYAN, to some extent, is business as usual, in the sense that there's always collaboration needed. A network is never something that somebody runs on its own. And when we look at the Swiss ecosystem, we are partnering with literally everybody here on those seats, but of course there's also competition happening, and I think that's very well understood and also well designed. And I think we shouldn't try to reinvent the wheel when it comes down to these collaboration efforts, but we should copy with pride what already works well in more established and more legacy technologies. I think CYAN can benefit from this collaboration and competition history.
Absolutely, I fully agree. Jerome, bringing in also here maybe an international point of view. How do you think the collaboration could eliminate possible security officers' concerns?
Thank you again. You asked me to answer on the international. I'm not being that international because we're still European. But yeah, but that. No, the fact is, Egon is right. I'm sure we're going to tackle all together the transport problem. The security or the redundancy enabled by the CYAN thing, even at the global level, I guess we can already do it, and it's 1 or 2 years job, and we can achieve this. My concern, our concern, is more that connection between 2 offices or 2 of your own premises, it's just pure transport. So we can already tackle all together again. But if on one hand you have your premises, and on the other hand you need to access a service provider, the worst case will be a SaaS in West Virginia. Why would that guy and how would that guy be Cyan enabled? So there will be a stitching again to make. There's two options. Either we help them be part of the ecosystem by finding the proper service, technology, equipment, whatsoever, to bring them into the same security perimeter, and that's fine. Or Cyan is so important for them, so they will come to us. The best way to come to us is just to change their transit to their IP transit to a Cyan-enabled IP transit. So again, as I said earlier, betting that 95% of the service you're using will be Cyan-enabled in 1 or 2 years is maybe a big bet. So better altogether find a way to ease that transition, not just for customers, but for service provider that sometimes just rely on other infrastructure. Again, they can rely on AWS or Google or Amazon, or do all this by themselves, hosted in their private premises. So that's mainly our concern. And the more we work on this, the more value we'll bring to the Cyan ecosystem, because if you can find all the application you need into that secure and reliable ecosystem, it will work. It will work.
Thank you. Martin, you mentioned before, and also standardization. Maybe you could elaborate a bit on that also, and how you think that could sort of like provide, at least at the beginning, a stable basis, which will hopefully at some point become just ubiquitous and normal.
I mentioned standardization more in a technological sense. Means that the standardization is needed, that basically big organizations or big vendors are integrating the technology into their technology stack, which is important. As well, Patrick Neff mentioned that before. I'm sure on an operational side that a certain formalism is needed to establish trust that we need for these solutions. But I would as well go back to Egon. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, because we are used to work with some formalisms, because we have very few organizations as well big service providers that can provide end-to-end worldwide full stack by themselves. That seems important. And then I think there is another dimension when we're looking into Cyan, which is quite specific. So when we're looking into the governance, we did that together for SSFN. This needs to be formalized to get the transparency, and based on the transparency to get the trust. Yeah. So I agree, we need formalism, but I think we shouldn't put that much weight on that, but rely on what we already have, and we know that it works.
Absolutely. I think I can just take that up. Yes, with SFN, we built a rule book, which is, I think, a very good basis for the whole thing. I think we need to sort of just take that one level lower and get also on the operational level an equivalent, and then we've got a really good basis. Robbie, maybe you could sort of maybe you have also some thoughts on that, and maybe can contribute also how relevant you see factors such as that, at least at the beginning.
Well, I would agree with my colleagues here. I mean, we are building up on a very solid foundation in how we are already working together in this environment. And I mean, Cyan is, of course, still relatively new. So I think there, of course, will need some further investments into the governance around into SLAs and how we handle multi-operating networks. But I'm very sure that we're able and capable to do that in the next even couple of months, to have a first pilot out, where we can demonstrate how this works, and then it will develop over the next couple of years. I'm very sure on that one.
Thank you. Markus, what can you add to that topic?
In terms of business case, but also resiliency, I just want to get back to the initial question as well. So at a lot of times, I think the business case is really centered around compliance and resiliency that Cyan as a technology can bring to customers. So it's more about this, which then would lead to initial use cases driven more by regulated industries or in regulated industries. That is important. And also getting back to the availability. So to me, there's also an opportunity for us from a network infrastructure vendor perspective to combine the concepts of Cyan with the ideas of SD-WAN and come up with a solution that, in addition to what the providers are going to do to make it resilient, provide cross technology resiliency as well. So I think there's also room for innovation in that space in the coming years.
Okay, thank you. I think one of you mentioned beforehand, I'm not quite sure if it was you, Egon, or you, Adrian, about the business case. I think a very important aspect here. Obviously, the introduction of a Cyan-based network will generate some costs at the beginning. And as you also mentioned, you have to create the business case, otherwise it'll be difficult to adopt it. Maybe starting with you, Egon, where do you see, or how can you create such a business case for your customers? Where do you see the value add for your customers, also from a financial perspective?
So, talking about it in a more general way, if I look at the last months and also various conversations I had with large customers, their big question is: are we prepared well against ransom attack? Are we prepared, and so on and so forth? And many of the boards have spoken lots of budget to fight those attacks. And I think what is not yet well established is the know-how around what mitigation capabilities a Cyan can bring. Yeah, so today many people try to mitigate the issues with known solutions, with yesterday's solutions, and I think it's less the budget, but it's more the association of these cyber defense budgets with these kinds of technologies, specifically also Cyan. So I would say in general, it's yet another case around security, but we need to, correlate the Cyan technology with these kinds of business cases.
Okay, very interesting, thank you. Jerome, how do you see that? Do you agree with that point of view, or do you have a different point of view?
No, I fully agree with the Egon point of view. The challenge, of course, will be security and the reliability of the network, but at some point you need to open to some kind of public network, so we would call it that way. To be transparent, that's not the heart of what InterCloud is doing on a day-to-day basis. We provide an end-to-end private connection between customer premises and their Azure or AWS private cloud. But in any case, in any organization, you need to have access to, let's say, the public thing. So as soon as you do this, you expose your network to, as Egon said, a nightmare, because and DDoS or ransomware whatsoever is just the start, and you all know this. The year that are coming will be worse in terms of how can you protect your network from this. There's only two options. Either, as Egon said, you embrace the fact that you will need access to those public resources, so you need protection, and legacy protection will work partially, and you will need to complement it with the new world of protection. Cyan will be a very efficient protection. Or, hey, you go 100% private and you think that you can work perfectly in the 21st century with 100% on-prem and private system. It's your call. I have an answer. It's really your call.
Okay, thank you. Robbie, how would you describe to a ecosystem what the business case is for that new ecosystem to actually transform to CYAN-based network?
Yeah, I would really try to argue on the business benefits in having a secure, flexible, agile ecosystem like the SSFN. I mean, you know, what could it really mean for Switzerland, for the Swiss financial marketplace, you know, in having this ecosystem, you know, having this trusted relationship with different parties in it, and, you know, how can that make the Swiss financial marketplace more interesting than the competitors around the globe? I mean, if you start to calculate that business case and that, you know, options you are having in such a case, and what that could mean for this ecosystem, you know, I think then, although it's of course not so easy to calculate, but the benefit can be huge. It can be a multiplier, of course, and that should also be the reason why other ecosystems start thinking about going the same route as SSFN. Whether it's, and we heard that, you know, in the e-healthcare in Switzerland, for instance, you know, it's still not very much defined. You know, there are still too many hurdles, and creating such an ecosystem in this area, for instance, would be a huge benefit here. Or, you know, governments, utilities, I mean, you name it. There's so many options, and I'm really excited about all those options, to be honest.
Okay, thank you. Adrian, what other use cases do you see? What sort of ecosystems would you see in addition to those Robbie just mentioned?
Yeah, the healthcare is really interesting. I'm really happy to have seen the HIN logo on the slide from earlier. Well, utilities, critical infrastructure. We talked a lot about the feared blackout in Switzerland and how to interconnect the utilities companies. So that's definitely a user group, let's say, or a group of companies which is known and could be open to such things, but can elaborate it further also to public safety, red light, blue light organizations, which have to, well, more and more interoperate as well. Well, we hear a lot in the pandemic about transporting from one hospital to another, so a lot of cooperation is required, and this is, I think, today done in a not fully efficient way, seeing that from the outside perspective. So there's definitely potential. When looking at small, medium-sized companies in Switzerland, I think they have a disadvantage of a rather small market in Switzerland, but often they also strive for international context. You see many, also in banking, many smaller private banks in Switzerland with CHAF branches in Luxembourg, UK or Asia, and for them it's definitely a big hurdle today to operate technically such a connectivity to all their branches, and that enables them to maybe keep their business and reduce their operating costs. So for small and medium enterprises, there is definitely a lot of potential as well, I see. And also in the industry, having manufacturing companies which need to partner. You have often research in Switzerland, but probably do the production abroad, need to establish a secure and reliable connection. There could be industry espionage on the way, so you need to lower those risks as well. A lot of potential. You see, I could go on for forever, and I see nearly every company has something in it to use.
Okay, thank you. Markus, turning over to you, maybe also from your perspective as a network provider or as a equipment provider, what sort of use cases would you see in addition here, or sort of maybe you've got a different angle here on use cases for ecosystems for a CYAN-based network?
I mean, everything that was mentioned before, I touched on the initial introduction as well. So I think we have like a very high alignment on use cases and basically ecosystems or verticals to go after. One that haven't been mentioned explicitly, which we also think is going to be critical, is really retail logistics. and transportation. So that is certainly a market that we have seen a lot of demand around resiliency, availability, and definitely also an ecosystem to go after. So as mentioned, I think you can almost apply to every enterprise out there, but I think providing some initial guidance or catalyst or a spark that those ecosystems really understand for them, I think that's important for all of us to spark those ideas in those verticals, and so create the scale in terms of use case, and then subsequently demand that will allow service providers to invest into the technology and build out their networks.
Yeah. Thank you. We heard beforehand by Martin Bossert that new service providers are coming along and the traction is taking up. We also know that maybe, or we've heard that maybe the customers are not always that exuberant in coming along in speed. Martin, what do you see as a sort of an accelerating factor that one could use to get more customers faster on track?
Yeah, well, in my opinion, we need lighthouse projects. So really projects that show the benefits and show that the benefits really are really realized at the end. Like the SSFN, I think we need more of that. And we are as well specifically looking at that. In our community, that's well, mostly driven by requirements from research side, and there it's a combination between performance and increased security. It's not so easy as long as we are in Switzerland, but it gets more interesting when we go international. And for me, well, I would like to go back to a statement by Florian Schütz. I think the important thing for us is that at the end it's secure by design. And not just something very old where we try to add small portions of security on top, but it's secure by design, and I think that's a perspective. And the other thing that we like and that motivates us to develop to develop the ecosystem as well in the area community is that we would like to see a Swiss technology going international.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Robbie, what do you see, or sort of what could you think are accelerating factors to get more customers to onboard earlier?
Yeah, references certainly help. So I would agree with the lighthouses, Martin. So public relations, events like this one, communication from all the various stakeholders, the providers. We as a telco provider, service provider, we certainly also in the forefront in communicating it to our ecosystems. We have quite a broad sales team as well, communicating it on a daily basis to customers and ecosystems, establishing the standards further, the governance around it. And then at the end of the day, of course, also the willingness and the breadth, the financial power, to keep it going for the next couple of years, because it's not going to be over, very soon. We need to continue for years now, right? Mm-hmm. So, and if we agree on that, I think then everything is possible.
Okay, thank you. I think we're slowly coming to an end, but let me beforehand ask one final question again to all of you. In your opinion, what is the single biggest value add that a CYAN-based network provides to an ecosystem? So if you have to say it in one word or in one sentence, this is it. Markus, maybe starting off with you.
Well, I thought I have a little bit more time to think about it, but putting it into one word, that's tough. I think to me, it's resiliency that comes in different forms. It comes in availability, security, segmentation, isolation. So I would describe it as you can build more resilient more reliable networks with Cyan.
Okay, thank you. Jerome, what would be your sort of one sentence, your elevator pitch?
I won't use one sentence. Again, I'll use one word. I think it's control. It's because if you have the control, security, redundancy, resilience, SLA, whatever benefit you want to get it. And for me, why control is really useful in that use case is that internet is not under control. So answering to your former question about what could be a game changer is more education. Explaining to the world that internet is not made for mission critical application. So gain control.
Okay, thank you. Adrian, what would be your one sentence value adding?
For me, it's the possibility for a company to gain operational and also business flexibility with new solutions, new partners, but not integrating too many new risks into their environment. Still, there are new risks when implementing new technologies, obviously, but being open to the ecosystem, to the internet, open up there. With Cyan is a mitigating measures to many risks which could occur or do occur doing that. Yeah.
Thank you. Robbie, your sentence?
For me, it's trust. I mean, an ecosystem is only as good, as the partnership beyond, and the partnership is founded on trust. And if this is a trusted ecosystem, then it's going to be successful.
Thank you. Egon?
There is one thing I would like to add to the conversation before as well. I think what also could be a huge push is one of the digital dragons adopts Cyan, especially also in use cases around where we can replace multipass TCP. That wasn't discussed yet. I think that's also a very interesting characteristic. And hopefully they will buy Anapaya and all the rights. I think Adrian and the team will make sure with the foundation that this is not going to happen. But this could also be something that could be really helpful. And one word, so there were many good words already said, so I stick with sovereignty. Because of course it's also gaining back control over something that today is not that controllable.
Thank you, Egon. Martin, your one letter word, your elevator pitch?
Well, it's not new. I go with two statements. It's resiliency and trust. And this is for me based on security by design. And we need to go, we need to evolve the internet to secure by design internet.
Thank you very much. So, and I think with this, I would like to conclude this round. I think we've heard some very inspiring words here. We've had some very interesting comments here. I think it's been very informative also for me. And I would like to take this opportunity also to thank all the panelists for participating here. And with that, I would like to hand back to you, Leah. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you. That was a wide range of perspectives. Thank you so much.